Well, it's amazing we've gotten to this point in the program. We haven't already focused on mobility. This session probably should be, next year we're going to flip it because mobile should be first and everything else should be afterwards. But it's appropriately titled "Mobile is a Must." And to introduce the panel is Russell Hertzberg, Vice President of SaaS Mobility and ISV Solutions for SoftServe. Please give a warm welcome to Russ on the panel. Here we go.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks. Is my mic on?
I think it'll go on right now. Go ahead. Speak up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, so this is the Mobile and Must panel. My name is Russ Hertzberg. I'm responsible for SaaS mobility practices at SoftServe. Here are our panelists. I'm going to let them each briefly give maybe a 30 to 60 second overview of who they are and what they do, and then we'll start fielding some discussion matters and talk about mobile and cloud.
Thank you. My name is Jan Aleman, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Servoy. And Servoy provides a business application platform which is used by ISVs to create both desktop and mobile cloud-based applications. We have about 500 ISVs as a customer, so we have quite some insight in what's going on in the market today.
I'm Bottum. I'm the Vice President of Marketing for SpringCM. SpringCM is a cloud business content management application, thank you. It's used by customers to share, collaborate, and automate document processes. And ISVs actually use our product to content enable their transaction systems. We also have customers in this area like if you become a new employee of Facebook, all your onboarding process is done through SpringCM. And Genentech runs a 30,000 doctor portal using Spring.
Hi, my name is Lisa Reeves, and I head up the line of business for Access and Cloud at Citrix Online Services Division, which is a division of Citrix Systems. We're based in Santa Barbara, California, and we have about 1,200 employees. And in my line of business, the primary solution is GoToMyPC. And within the family of online services, we have all of the go-to products. You might know some of them, which GoToMeeting, GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, GoToTraining. We also have a solution in the area of IT services.
Hi, I'm Nolan Wright, and I'm co-founder and CTO of Appcelerator. We provide a next-generation mobile cloud platform that allows developers to build fully native and mobile web applications using JavaScript. And then we have a set of pre-built cloud services that are focused around common mobile use cases. We've got about 300,000 registered developers, and roughly 40,000 apps have been deployed on our platform.
Great, okay. So this is an ISV-oriented show, so maybe we'll start with almost a classic conundrum that ISVs are facing now when they start to mobilize an existing product, or even they plan a new offering that's designed and directed at mobile platforms like the iPad or Android. The classic conundrum
the kind of the level of expectation that they have and the visibility of the brand, we've really gone with native.
So yeah, for us, when we talk to our customers, what we hear consistently is user experience is what really matters. And it's interesting too, because we see a lot of this even in business applications, and we are in a little bit of a weird spot because is at least to this question, because we help people build native applications and get the native experience, but it is a tool set, so it's an abstraction layer. So you can use JavaScript, so you don't have the problem and pain of writing cross-platform, but you get the benefit of user experience. But like I said, we generally see people really wanting the native user experience for both consumer-facing apps and for business apps as well.
So yeah, I want to believe in the beauty of HTML5 and that there's going to be at some point a write once, run everywhere world, but I kind of doubt it still because I'm older and cynical. Yeah, we've heard about magic like that before. One thing I've noticed almost immediately with connected mobile apps is that very rarely when I'm disconnected, which although we hate to admit it, happens, like you get on a US Air flight that doesn't have go-go internet and you have no local content storage. And so is that an issue that can be resolved? When you're disconnected, if you've built a mobile web app, can you deliver content that people want and need, that they can read, browse, index, search? Is that something we should aspire to do?
Yes, and it's not, actually it's one of the standards. It's not completed yet in HTML5 local storage, but it can already be done with today's technology. As an example, one of our clients in Germany, Deutsche Bahn, so the German railway, they have an inspection application written on our platform, and they needed it to work offline. So they typically have no issue with being online, but sometimes if you're in a railway station, there is no internet, the inspection still has to take place. So they decided we need to be able to sync data in a local data store and be able to sync it back, and we also need security to be in place in case anything happens to the device. And those things can definitely be done in HTML5.
Well, I was just going to say that I think that's an interesting question because it really comes down to sort of the context. So if you think about mobile anytime, anywhere access, and then in the idea of content, what's recent and what's relevant, and can you immediately serve that up? And so I think that when you talk about mobile, there is an expectation that what's recent and relevant is available on a mobile device.
Okay, let's maybe shift gears a little bit and talk about everybody's favorite topic in the SaaS world, security. Does building mobile apps for cloud deployment impose any special requirements and considerations on the mobile app side for security, and what are some of those? And as a corollary to that, I'm interested in any of your experiences with mobile device management. What might you have done with it? What would you like to do with it? So wide open field. I know it's kind of a broad question, but let's have fun with it.
I think I would start, if you're in the business space, it's not so much security as governance.
Yep.
So take it up a little, right? And so in the content space specifically, you're starting with what can be deployed, on a mobile device, and maybe you don't want the company's secret plans to be on an unsecured or a device that you don't manage. Once it is there, obviously there's some basics that you need in terms of security and access to the application, whether it's PIN protection, passwords to your accounts, and of course local encryption of the content that's stored there. So it is pretty complex, but what we find is actually the security part is reasonably straightforward. It's the governance part where organizations need a lot of help, is to manage and understand, again, what ends up there, and of course the typical when the device gets lost, not if. How does that get handled in terms of the company content that's on that device?
Great. More comments?
Yeah. So, at least from our perspective, what we see a lot of is, obviously we provide a platform for developing mobile apps, and it's interesting. Like, the last 15 years, I think software development's been a very server-oriented activity. And what we're seeing with mobile developers is, in user experience in particular, it's driving that or shifting that more to the client. And if you think about that and what the needs are when it's more client focused, you know, it's really ultimately what we're seeing is it's APIs in the cloud.
Yeah.
And so to the point about security, I think it creates some new opportunities and challenges in managing those APIs, like, you know, managing like API keys, API authentication, access control, throttling of the APIs. And so we're definitely seeing the world shift to more of this mobile kind of cloud, almost like client server. It's almost like client server all over again, where the cloud is serving up APIs, basically data. And so we're seeing a lot of activity around managing the APIs. And then as it relates to MDM, the other thing we're seeing is because of kind of the bring your own device, is that people are really shifting to application management and trying to actually secure not only the distribution of the application, but also the security around the applications. There's some vendors like Nucona who got acquired by Symantec who actually wrap the app post-compile. And you can actually add capabilities like, you know, enforce encryption, enforce secure authentication. You can, you know, wipe the app's data, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, enterprise deployment of apps in some environments probably absolutely requires the ability, if the device is lost, to be able to wipe the corporate data. I can think of any number of enterprise use cases where the enterprise IT organization simply won't permit deployment of it unless that capability is delivered. I've got an iPad here, and I've been using it for quite a while. It's got a mix of my corporate email on it, a couple of other corporate apps or company frameworks that we're building, and then it's a BYOD device already in a sense because I'm in the App Store, you know, and I can go in the App Store and say, oh, Squirrel, that looks cool, and you know, I have Squirrel. Is that a fundamental problem to enterprises that are used to controlling what their employees do, and what's the solution? To me, it's an empowered individual world now, and I'd like to get all your comments on it. And as an individual user of a mobile device, and with all the services that are out there, I'm always going to have a mix on this device of things that I've selected personally and of things that I need to do my professional job. And in that environment, is there any creative tension? Is there a resolution to that push and pull between the individual's freedom and the desire of the corporation to kind of control the business use of the device?
I think it's all relative. I mean, in today's world, it's very clear that if somebody wants to get information out of you, he will get it out of you. You know, there was a 17-year-old guy who hacked the PlayStation 3, which everybody said was impossible to do. And even an iPad, you know, if a good technician opens it up, hooks up his magic, he will get your data out. So it's the reality that's of the world that you live in. And I think your email example is a very good one. A lot of your company secrets go through email, and email is already on most devices. Even a BlackBerry can be. Don't imagine that BlackBerries cannot be hacked. They can definitely be hacked, and it is happening in today's world. So if you have secret information, then don't store it on the portable devices. Is my advice, or just take the risk. You know, in my case, I take the risk. I have my company email on my iPad, and I realize that if somebody steals it from me, that he will have access to, well, at least all the email that has been downloaded on the iPad. But you have to compare this risk to the risk you had before the cloud world, which I think was bigger, because, you know, breaking into somebody's desktop computer is 10 times easier than cracking open an iPad. So you have to put everything in context, that yes, if somebody really wants to if any government really wants to get to your data, he will get to your data anyway. So that's something we'll have to give up in today's world and balance. And I think with business apps if your business apps have a lot of secure data in them, then don't store it on the device, but only let it work in a browser, because then it's gone when you're disconnected.
So kind of a follow-up to that, Nolan, I'd love to hear your take on the use case of remote wipe. So, you know, device gets lost, say his device gets lost. Let's go through the use case. Next time it connects to the network is who knows how long, an hour later, 4 hours later, in a different country, who knows. But the idea is the next time it connects to the network, if he's reported it as a lost device, there's a service running in the cloud that, when it's connected to the network, will do things to that device remotely. What's your take on that scenario? How practical is that? Does it really work?
Well, I think it depends on whose device it is, right? So if it's my device, that wouldn't be acceptable. Like if I buy my own device, I pay for my plan, I'm not going to want someone to be able to wipe my entire device because it could happen accidentally. Like there's all sorts of potential problems. And that kind of gets back to the point I brought up previously around app management. It's like, I don't think there's any foolproof solution to this, but like in the app management case, if I bring my own device, it would be fine for me if someone wiped the app and the app data. That's the company's, because they own that, and if I install it and use it, it's their right to do what they want with it. So, and we do even as we talk to some MDM vendors, we hear them shifting more to sort of an app management view of the world just because of the BYOD phenomenon. But then again, though, if the company pays for my device and it's their device, then they're free to do what they want. So.
Criteria for being a responsible SaaS ISV?
I think it depends what type of application is, but I do think that you have to be open about it when you're selling a product and make your customers aware on the security risks that they have using any type of application. Even if you're SaaS providing an application to the desktop, that application can be hacked into as well. If you're running on Salesforce, no matter what they will tell you, but if you really want to, you can hack into those systems. If even Google gets hacked into in China, and they have the top security guys working for them. The Chinese guys had access to some of their latest developments that were going on. So I think it's also very important to increase the awareness of everybody that privacy is being looked at differently today than, and hopefully in the long term, in a better planet, we won't need this anymore, because if all information is set free, then you don't need security at all. Although maybe on my medical records I do on some of that. But yeah, it is. I mean, 1984 is closer than we think it is.
Any more comments on that?
I think we would say, we've done it inside of our application, is sort of how we do it. So I guess we would say yes for content. But again, a lot of it depends on the type of content. It's the use case, horses for courses. If you're pushing out marketing collateral to 3,000 salespeople, who cares? Right. If you have board packets, you care.
Yeah. So the consensus of the panel is, depends on what kind of SaaS ISV and what their application does, but there are use cases where it is the responsible thing to do. Okay, kind of related to that, today I got a push notification in my settings on my iPad that there was a new iOS version. It was a 45 megabyte download. I went ahead and did it. It wasn't too annoying. It was, I think, 6 to 8 minutes roughly on my 4G hotspot connection. When you go to the App Store, there's all these things that you can get, including some sort of corporate type apps. So is the App Store model, which obviously Apple has done a tremendous job of in terms of usability, Android's doing it as well, others are doing it, App Exchange is a similar model. Is that the right model for enterprise deployment of mobile apps? What's been your experience when you go and if you try to sell a mobile app to a big financial institution or to a large pharma company, are they going to deploy this to 2,000 people by telling them, go get an App Store account and download the blah, blah, blah from this link? Is that how we're going to deploy in the corporate environment, or is it going to be something different? I'll let Roger go first because I know he's got some corporate customers. Sorry, Roger.
No, that's all right. Again, I would say the short answer is we're seeing that large organizations are comfortable at the moment using the app stores, the existing app stores. We would expect that to evolve, though, I think. And I guess, again, I would say I don't think the corporate governance side has caught up maybe with the reality of where we are today, as you were mentioning earlier. And so I think the notion of private stores, enterprise stores, sort of here are a range of applications that are in the corporate side of your mobile device. I think that's where we see it going.
Yeah, I'll second that. Like, kind of back to mobile application management, a lot of these vendors have enterprise app stores as part of their solutions. The second thing we're actually starting to see that's interesting is there's a company called Appcelerator, which actually will scan compiled applications. So there's really good use case there where if you want to bring third-party apps into your enterprise environment, you could run them through a service like that, and they'll tell you, like, they'll give it like a privacy rating, they'll tell it if it's doing any risky behaviors, and they'll give it an overall score. And so you can have some way to at least vet apps that you bring into your enterprise environment. So I think we'll see more things like that. So you have more control, at least, or at least you can prevent from spreading viruses, all throughout your enterprise.
That's also a mobile technology consulting service we actually offer as well, interestingly enough. So if you're building an HTML5 type mobile app, is that the same problem or is it no problem? The app basically runs like any browser app. Does that solve the issue at a certain level of initial distribution of the client piece of the solution? Or not really?
It depends how you distribute it. If you just do it pure through the browser, then the user has to take particular action to get it on his homepage.
Yep.
So you have to sort of train your users how to do that. But you can still take an HTML5 application and deploy it as a native app with, for example, PhoneGap. And to get back to your earlier question, we saw that Deutsche Bahn, a German company, said we are not going to roll out this application on iPhone because of Apple's App Store policy. So at least in Europe, this does play that some companies will choose for the Android platform. Whether this is a wise decision or not is a separate discussion, because at the same time on Android it is much easier to roll out a virus than it is on Apple's more closed platform. So it's who do you trust? Do you trust Apple more than a potential virus writer that comes out with a virus for the Android devices that you have in the field? It's a tough question.
Yeah. Well, one thing we want to do here on the panel is we want to promote audience interaction. So our panel, I think, is scheduled to go another 10 to 15 minutes, and I think we're going to keep chatting, but we're going to throw it open early to audience questions. And I see Dave Key from South Orange County has a question already. So you get a mic. Hang on, Dave. You're going to get a mic.
Talking about the App Store and the future of the App Store, with 30% tax that Apple has and a lower one for Amazon, what do you see as a longer-term transition as ISVs don't want to pay this tax? They build an HTML5 application. The App Store provides a nice directory ability to discover it, but on the other hand, it's tough to give up that much margin to Apple or whomever when you have the opportunity of an HTML5 app that you can just have running.
I think there's a couple things, I think, potentially. One is, we see sometimes people will give the app away for free and then they charge for the back-end service. But that doesn't obviously work in all cases. And then I think the other potential cases will... Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And then I think the other potential option is what we talked about earlier about enterprise app stores, where you're actually distributing them through, you know, a private app store internally in the enterprise using something like an enterprise certificate that allows you to freely distribute the app to your employees.
I think there's a certain level of, you know, trust associated with the app store. And so if someone goes there, they feel like, hey, it's been vetted, I know what I have. And it depends a little bit also on what your strategy is. If it's a volume game, it's so easy for you to go into the app store and the in-app purchase and it's there, but there is a, you know, there is a fee that you pay to Apple. So it's really a series of trade-offs. I think it depends, and I think it will evolve, you know, as we see more of the enterprise app stores pop up and kind of trust built across other storefronts.
I think the 30% tax is not very high, personally. You know, there are more Android devices on the planet, but developers developing for Apple's App Store are making more money. So, do you want 100% of a little or 70% of a lot? Would be my question.
Yeah, my take is that there's going to be some disintermediation of the App Store concepts by the big guys. I think those taxes are high. I think when you look at the device numbers projected, there are going to be a lot more devices like this than anything else. The line's already been crossed. 30 cents on every dollar. So I see service providers as being able to step into that market. Obviously enterprises with private distribution methods, and I think probably some creative startups as well. That would be my take, that the current situation with the app stores, there will be several alternatives over a period of time, and who the players will be and what exactly they will do remains to be seen. But that's a great question from the audience. So Roger, I had a kind of interesting conversation about the capabilities one would want to have to deal with documents on a mobile device. When you guys looked at your standard Windows stick client or even your browser client, and then you looked at doing a version of that technology for Android or iPad, what was that requirements analysis process like? What did you decide to give up? What did you decide to keep, and why?
Well, I think probably most of us have gone through the same process where you basically throw out everything you currently do and kind of start over. And that's actually a very valuable exercise. And I think, so having, for example, the iPad in particular for an application like ours, which involves documents, which are larger, and the readability on a tablet device really gives you a chance to sort of reinvent it. Also incorporating, of course, all the gesture navigation and all those kinds of things. So I think some of what we learned is we have a very rich product, and trying to simplify it down to what someone could consume in a tablet environment was a great exercise, not only for developing that application, but is taking us back into the cloud. I'm sorry?
Is there a question? Oh, okay. We'll go ahead and get your mic in the back. Roman.
You know, there was a stereotype that mobility is the mobility of the device, not the data, a while ago, like in late 90s, right? But now we have, it's actually the mobility of the data. That's what we mean by saying mobility. And the question is, how do you think, what are the factors that actually changed the mind? And was it SaaS? Was it the appearance of marketplaces like Android Market or Apple Store? Or maybe something else?
I'm trying to understand the question.
Yeah, I'll try to rephrase it. I think the question was, the initial perception was mobility was about the mobility of a device and being able to carry a computing device around it with being light enough and might have a different architecture, but the device was mobile. But now your data is mobile, so some of it anyway. So some of your data can be stored in the cloud and you can access it anywhere. There's all kinds of examples of services and providers that do that, including SpringCM. Did I get the question right, Roman? Close enough?
100%, he said.
Okay, great.
So what changed?
Yeah. So do we have the nirvana yet of mobile data? Is data as mobile as it needs to be? How's that for a short summarization? Do we have further to go?
Yeah, actually, I think that's actually the wrong question.
Okay.
And actually, can I finish the prior question before first?
Of course.
Okay. So I think sort of transitioning, and I'd be interested in Lisa's comments on this as well, and the other panel members. The thing I think it's interesting is there's this concept now of a composite device. Right? I'm sure you've heard that phrase. So we all have, the average business person has 3 to 7 devices, and they may be sitting in front of you wherever you're working at any point in time. And for a task at a point, you may reach for any particular device. And so we've just started doing some studies on that at SpringCM. And what we did a study of our own customers, and the number 2 place where people used mobile is in the office. So the number 1 is obviously there are customers. You're almost always using mobile there. But the number 2 place, and so 75% of our customers are using mobile in the office, either in their own office or in meetings. And I think that sort of says a lot about how the use is evolving. I don't know if you want to comment on that, or do you see the same?
Well, actually, I was thinking of something. When you commented on the study you guys did, are people just consuming the content and data, or are they doing something?
They're actually doing something with it, and that's why I was going to disagree with the question there,
right,
which is a great segue. which is, you know, we always say it's, you know, if you're a professional, you know, sharing is nice, but it's not about sharing documents or files. It's about sharing work. It's about getting work done. And so the piece that's the evolution is, obviously you need to have the document or content at your fingertips, but then you're able to do something with it, whether that's move a process forward, approve a press release, edit and forward you know, the script for, you know, the questions for whatever that thing is. That's what work is. You know, reading something is what a Kindle does very well. And you can do on lots of different devices, but getting work done is what it's all about. So it's not just the data, it's being able to act on that data and accomplish your business task.
Well, yeah, so I see a real bifurcation in content tasks. So reading is a wonderful experience on devices like the iPad. There's no doubt about that, and scrolling pages is all very natural. Writing is a different story. I have a colleague who runs around with one of these little iPad keyboards, but reality, for me, is when I have to build a lot of content, or even if I want to design use cases for the iPad and I need to do screen captures and I need to mark them up and produce a use case document, I wind up currently going off this platform. And so content creation, at least for me personally in my multi-device life, kind of breaks down along the lines of this is a great viewing device. When I need to create content, I'm back on Windows.
So I think we're really at a tipping point. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see, because if you look at sort of from a venture, from a funding perspective, all the money's flown into the content store, you know, sync, share, you know, in that space. And I really think the next frontier will be kind of the productivity piece. So it will be interesting to see, you know, in the acquisition that LinkedIn just made.
Yep. SlideShare.
Right, and what was it?
Penultimate.
Yeah, penultimate. Oh. Yeah, yesterday, which was the writing.
Oh.
Yep.
And so I think that's going to be very interesting to see how the next like 12 months unfold in that space.
And commenting on data, I agree that the keyboard is in particular for us, the older generation. If you see young people type on it, it's already a different story.
Yep.
But I also think that that whole user experience is going to change. I think long term, it will be just connected to your mind, This will take a while, but there's already some promising experiments where I can just read your mind and whatever you're thinking, which sometimes can be dangerous, by the way. Goes on to.
Don't take that too far in the
goes
audience.
on to the device, and this is going to happen in our lifetime. I'm absolutely sure about that. What is already working is voice recognition. We have a large ISV in the UK. They've built an application for doctors who see patients, and they used to have a desktop app. Then they took it to the iPad, and this one now uses voice dictation in the cloud, voice recognition in the cloud. So the doctor will just say whatever he is diagnosing the patient. Patient's happy because he gets more attention. The doctor's actually looking at him instead of at his keyboard. Goes to the cloud, and the quality is over 99%, is what they tell me.
Yeah, that's a classic case where the scalability of compute resource can improve the speech recognition. And the ability to deploy that down to the device will do a lot better than trying to ever run that on a device itself. That's a great use case right there. But they picked the iPad for this particular implementation.
Yes. Yeah, so I think they also support iPhone, but they see in practice that all the doctors want an iPad. I think today 90% of their usage is on iPad. Everybody has moved away from desktop in literally less than half a year. So
informal survey, I think all of us here are mobile device users. When you use LinkedIn and Facebook, are you downloading their app and using their app, or are you just doing a browser experience? Quick survey. I'll go first. I did download the Facebook app. I didn't find it particularly better or worse than my mobile browsing experience with Safari. I don't really use it. LinkedIn's just pushing their app on me. I haven't taken it yet. So there's my answer. Go ahead.
I use both Facebook and LinkedIn on iPad and iPhone. But if I'm behind my computer doing my work and I want to do a quick lookup of a person, then I'll just use the browser.
I'm the same, so I use the apps.
Yes, exact same.
Yeah, for anything I use frequently, I use the apps for sure. That's what happens. Like I'll notice as I start to use something more, and I find myself going to the web, and I'm like, oh, it's time to get an app for that. Like I did this with Fandango. Like I would always buy movie tickets online, and like there's got to be an app for this. This is ridiculous. Like doing it on my browser, I'm like, squinting and like trying to maximize the page. So
I don't want to come off as too much of a troglodyte. There are a couple of amazing apps that I have on this iPad that I love, and there's nothing like them in the Windows world. Squirrel, for example, just amazing entertainment experience. Amazing personal TV type experience. Never seen anything like it on any other platform. Good stuff. More questions from the audience? Do we have any more hands? I can't see. I look up and I'm like blinded. If I look up, I'll be blind for the rest of the day. Okay, it looks like we have another question over here.
Just a quick question about mobile devices. We're talking about the iPad, we talk about iPhone, what about the Windows tablet, what about Samsung, what the development you are envisioning in terms of other devices?
Well, I'll go first. We have a very significant practice on Windows mobile platform, and we continue to evolve that for both current clients and for future work directly with Microsoft. So the Microsoft will never give up in this race. That's the kind of company they are, and they have the resources and the skills to be a player. They've clearly fallen, I don't know, a half generation, a full generation behind on the technology. It depends on your take, but they'll always be able to find hardware partners that they can work closely with. And I think they're in this race for the long term, and they have a lot of other assets to deploy. They own a large part of the application infrastructure on the enterprise side. So my take is Microsoft is not to be counted out, and both them and their hardware partners are very important players in mobility and in cloud plus mobility, have been, are, and will be. So that's my take. The rest of the panel.
Yeah. I think that Android is going to be a very strong player, in particular because the devices are a lot cheaper. And so for business usage, if you say I am running a point of sale system in a shop, and you can run that on a $200 Android device or on a $600 iPad, then Android is going to have a lot of benefits over that. It has a little bit less coolness factor, Microsoft, I don't see that going. I disagree with you. I think Microsoft is going nowhere. It is really, they should just kill the tablet and their phone and focus on Azure or something else.
Great, a contrarian, I love it, or something contrary.
I think actually, to a certain degree, it doesn't matter, would be my answer to the question, because the difference today is it's not the company saying you're going to use X, so that may happen in specific use cases. It's what somebody brings to work, or enough people bring to work. And so as we look at our strategy, it's really critical mass of our customers and the kinds of products that they're using today, and whatever they're going to be using in future years.
Yeah, no, similar for us. I mean, the bulk of our customers in my line of business are prosumers and the lower end of SMB, and so it's really customer dependent and what we hear from the customers. And I'm not counting out Microsoft.
The only thing I'd add is like for us, we kind of think of the world as screens, less as mobile devices. So there's connected TV. I think it's something that will obviously be more app-like. And then we're also talking to people like in the auto industry around bringing sort of the app model to cars. So I think it goes beyond just the phone and the tablet to things like TV and cars and probably lots of other things.
Your fridge, right?
Your fridge, exactly. Yeah. My fridge app.
Yep. So yeah, that's good stuff. Devices with user interfaces that we haven't seen on before. But
Actually, quick comment on that.
Sure, absolutely.
There was just an article today, I think in the journal. Did you happen to see it about cars? So it's sort of the beauty of what folks like Apple and some of the Android vendors have done, where you pick them up when you use them. The car manufacturers are having to run classes of how to use these new sort of richer dashboards that they have, because they have
taking off, and that's great. It shows the power of mobile, but I'm a little surprised a thin client kind of laptop that does have the keyboard that we all know us business people need. You know, is there a future there? I mean, is there a future for this hybrid thin client market where y'all can allow users to quickly work with no, you know, nothing heavy on this end?
Well, I think there is. You know, and I'll kind of take off on something that Jan talked about in terms of the pricing. I think we actually seen the battle before very clearly between Windows and Apple in the 90s. Android has a model that's going to produce less expensive hardware over time, more powerful hardware, more flexible hardware. Apple has a monolithic hardware software model they always have. It's been their strength, it's been their weakness, it's been their strength. It will probably become their weakness again. That's my take.
Yeah.
Rest of the panel?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that, you know, in particular in countries where Apple products are simply too expensive. I was in Africa recently, and you see that there's a very strong adoption of Android there, simply because of the price, and because, you know, hardware manufacturers start building very cheap devices. And don't forget that is more than half of the world population, probably 3/4 of the world population, cannot afford expensive Apple products. So there's a larger market potential for an Android device than for Apple.
I would agree in general on the notion of multiple different business models, but I'm not sure that the keyboard is the thing I would focus on. You know, what if you could have a keyboard without a keyboard? And there's some talk that may be coming down the road soon on the iPad and some of the advanced technologies that, you know, make a display device, make it feel like a keyboard to you. You know, what if you could have that? And you talked about
a better soft keypad, basically.
Yeah, one that physically is responsive to you, so you feel like you're pushing a key, even though it's a piece of glass, right? You talked about alternative entry models from voice to brainwaves.
Yeah.
You know, I think while keyboard will matter, I'm not sure it's going to look like the keyboard that we're using today.
Interesting. Well, I think I've been given the signal that our time is up. Thank you very much, everybody. We hope you've found the panel enlightening, and hope the rest of the show is great for everybody.
Thank you.